Oliver, what is going on, brother? I'm very excited to get into this. You've had quite an interesting journey, and I'm looking forward to diving
Mm.
actually into certain aspects and parts of your character, which have really shone through, I think, through sales. But before we get into your story, before we dive into how the product has helped you to, get better at closing, would you be able to give us a quick introduction as to who you are, what it is you do, all of that type of good stuff?
Of course, absolutely. So, yeah, in simple terms, I am just a high ticket closer on an offer, an online offer. We sell something that helps other marketing agencies scale. It's priced at about 5.5K, and I've been working on that particular offer for, gosh, since about April now, so about 8 months, 9 months or something. Quite a while before that, I worked in sales, just not in the kind of online high ticket space, more traditional stuff, like selling phones, and I was in recruitment and that kind of thing. So it was actually whilst I came from a sales background, it was quite a new experience stepping into the high ticket sales game online back when I did get started with it.
Which is very interesting. I think actually that's uh, perhaps a good thing for us to revisit in a minute because you're right. There is a difference between doing traditional sales cycles, depending on where you're operating, can be a lot longer versus, 1 hour to close 5 to 10K. But okay, cool. So obviously, I knew you a little bit beforehand before you jumped into this product from working on my previous offer, doing coaching calls for them, all of that type of good stuff. You
Mm.
came to me wanting to jump into my product to get some help with increasing your sales rate, your sales conversion rate. Why is it in particular that you wanted to have, I guess, a conversation with me as opposed to perhaps going with some of the offers that are also available in the market?
100%, really, really good question. Uh, I just knew for sure that um, you were going to be someone who's going to be able to help me specifically. So I knew on your old offer, you were selling something very, very similar to what I had been selling. I knew that you had taken that business, you'd scaled that business significantly by, closing loads of deals, scaling out their sales team, that kind of thing. Similar offer. So I just thought, who better to speak to? I remember I messaged you I essentially just wanted to speak to you for like 10, 15 minutes on the phone. Nothing, I didn't even know you had the offer. I was just like, I just wanted to chat to you and just kind of get your 2 cents. And then it just so happened that it was like that weekend you were launching the offer. So
Yeah,
it all fell into place quite nicely.
very serendipitous. Okay, cool. So, at that at that point in time, let's do a little
Mm.
diagnosis of what was going on. What was your
Sure.
sales conversion rate at that stage? I know it was fluctuating a little bit, but what did it look like?
I almost don't want to tell you. It was hovering in the, let's just say on a good month it was about 10%, 12%, and then on my worst months as low as zero, like 2%, like really low, like 100 calls. I remember in May, so we spoke in at the end of July. In May, I did 99 calls and closed two deals, and like one of them like asked for like a refund the next month as well. So it was, yeah, it was really, I was in a rough spot for sure.
Yeah. And obviously, we figured out that there were a few different things that were contributing to this. Obviously, we never blamed the leads, but there was an aspect of the leads which was a little bit problematic. But obviously, that's not
Yeah,
the whole picture, right? Like
no.
you knew, I knew that improving your skill set would enable you to close more deals. So when it comes to your skill set, what do you feel like was actually holding you back? Why is it that you were closing at, maybe 5, 6, 7, 10%?
Well, I mean, there's so many different areas to touch on. I reckon that at the time, probably the biggest mistakes I was making that was getting in the way of me closing the deals, that the calls that I was taking back then, despite the lead quality, was focus in the calls, like really, really being dialed into every single call and like properly paying attention to what the people were saying that I was speaking to and really kind of connecting with you know, what they really were meaning, reading between the lines, dialing into kind of their emotional states, that kind of thing. So really being present in the call, I think was probably one of the big things. And then the second thing that springs to mind is just talking too much. Like I was just yapping unnecessarily at loads of stages in the conversation for no reason. And that was not even moving the call forward. It was actually moving the call backwards, like getting me further away from the close a lot of the time. And then I think finally I didn't have a solid framework for dealing with objections and really like kind of knowing what order to deal with them in and also how to deal with them as well. Like even if I did know the order, I had a rough idea, but I think a lot of the time I was just winging it and just relying on yeah, just my raw just passion and conviction and desperation to close the deals.
Okay, cool. So there's three different things there. There's the active
Yeah.
listening, there's having targeted conviction, and obviously the objection handling piece. I'll explore the first two in a little bit more detail later on. But just to dive into the objection handling side of things, when you say that you didn't have the right processes in place, obviously I know that you mean you didn't have the right scripts and X, Y, and Z. But what were those objections that you kept stumbling on time and time again?
Yeah, great question. So I think a lot of the time it was that typical, they need to think about it,
Mhm.
which I did at the time. I didn't really, I didn't really have a very slick way of kind of figuring out what they were saying. I would a bit more direct, a bit more combative in the way that I would deal with that. All the time, I was getting money objections because of the lead quality. We're speaking to a lot of people in lower but not low income countries, which was making it tricky. It really did feel like those people didn't have the money, like they actually didn't, rather than they were just giving me some objection. But yeah, I think that was probably the main things that were kind of coming up at the time.
Okay, cool. And that makes a lot of sense. It's always the key thing that I typically see when you're jumping onto sales calls is you get the time to think about an objection, then you get the money objection, and then you get the fear objection. And if you can
Yeah,
bypass those
the
three,
trifecta.
then it's
Yeah.
happy days. Now, what is very, and I really do mean this as well, and we were kind of talking about this just before we jumped in to do the interview. What is very interesting about you is your mindset, right? One of the things that I always say to business owners when it comes to hiring a closer is that you always hire on mindset because of the difficulties that you'd face in the early stages of being a closer. I would have thought that you wouldn't have the mindset that you had. You were very relentless. You just kept pushing. You knew that you wanted to win. And I think that massively helped you. But I guess with that taken into consideration and also, the problems that you were facing from maybe being a little bit combative, not really listening as well as you could, not having targeted conviction, whatever it may be, beyond your sales conversion rate as well, how do you feel like that was impacting your ability to close the deals and actually get the sales conversion rate that you were looking for? How do you feel like those factors were inhibiting you as a closer is effectively what I'm saying?
Such as being combative, for example.
Yes, not engaging
Yeah,
in active listening. How did, now that you have the hindsight to look back on it, how do you feel
yeah,
like it was changing the way that the calls were going?
yeah, for sure. So I think first thing being combative or being a bit too direct in my approach. Definitely being too direct, actually, just not being tactical, basically, in the way I approach things, was making people kind of get all cagey and kind of retreat into their like shell and not actually kind of open up and be more vulnerable and be more open about what their true objections and thoughts and feelings and stuff were. When it came to like active listening,
Mhm.
so that was just super. That's really, really simple. Like you said, oftentimes it's like time to think about it, then money, and then we get to fear. A lot of the time, I could have took, like, I should have known exactly what their objections were if I had truly listened to them throughout the entire call. A lot of the time, the objections were revealing themselves to me, obviously, or sometimes not so obviously, but they were there in the call. And had I have been listening better, then it wouldn't have come as a surprise to me. I wouldn't when they objected, when they said they needed to think about it, when they weren't bought in, when they didn't agree to move forward. I think that was probably yeah, like I was getting taken off guard or having no idea, right? Like you said, like the worst objection is the one you don't know, and a lot of the time I wouldn't know because I wasn't listening, but I should have known.
And this is something that I've actually seen you improve massively on because you obviously understand what I mean by active listening now. And when you're saying, yes, they were telling me what the objection is,
Mm.
they were and they are, but a lot of the time it's literally 1 second where they'll
Yeah.
just give you an idea of what you're dealing with. So, okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's kind of progress this now towards us actually having the call. I remember
Mm.
taking this call with you, Ollie, and you were like, oh, I want to get myself to 20%. And we dug into that a little bit, and you were like, I don't even know if it's possible for me to close at 20%. This seems ridiculous. Um, do you mind sharing with everybody now where you are, what your sales conversion rate is looking like?
Yeah. So, I mean, 20% is my like non-negotiable baseline every single month now. And it sits more averaging about 25%, I would say consistently. Just kind of sometimes it sits at about 22, sometimes it pops up to 27, 28. I get a bit excited, get closer to 30, comes back down to 25. But yeah, no less than 20%. And I think also it's certainly worth mentioning that I didn't believe you when you said you thought I could get to 20%. Sorry, I believed you, but I didn't believe it was possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I only trusted, I only, like, all the belief was just straight coming from you rather than what I actually thought. I was just like, well, if Jack thinks I can do it, then I believe him. But it took me actually getting there for me to actually believe that it was genuinely possible. I had to see it for myself, you know?
Yeah, and you've turned it around in a very short period of time. I think it's been about 4 months now, and you've
Mm,
basically tripled, depending on where we're considering your start off number as being, but definitely either tripled or potentially even quadrupled your sales conversion rate in the space of 4 months, which is fucking
literally.
awesome.
It's
So
wild.
so let's dive into why do you feel like that has been able to happen? Obviously, I know, short answer is, well, I was able to learn more information. But why do you feel like now you have been able to make that shift? Because to me as well, it seems like you've got a really solid understanding of what is actually happening on the sales calls. It's not just, oh, here are some scripts. I just need to say these scripts. It's you get what is going on.
Mm. I think it stems. I think all of it fundamentally stems from knowing what's going on, and I think that the understanding the principles, like really, really understanding about that active listening, about really listening to what the person's saying and kind of reading between the lines, and kind of the whole all the principles of just like guiding the prospect instead of pushing them. Like I said, I was having issues with, and also just I suppose knowing when to deploy the script, when to use the scripts, when to say the things. I mean, if you wouldn't have given me any scripts and just taught me the how to be better in the call to know what's going on, where I'm at, what I'm dealing with, then I probably would have started to close more deals anyway. But then also, in addition to that, knowing having the right thing, like the right things to say at those times as well, I think was like those two things kind of in combination just were like a catalyst towards me just seeing that overnight success, what it felt like overnight success with my sales conversion rate.
Okay, cool. Let's loop back all the way to the top of the conversation because you were talking about the fact that you had past sales experience, right? So
Yeah.
I'm assuming, I may be wrong here, but I'm assuming even when you were in those sales roles, you were getting sales training. Is that correct? Whether it was really intense or
Mm,
even just here and there. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So when we I guess when we look at the type of sales training that you were getting there versus what you managed to get from the product, where do you feel like that gap was potentially?
Brilliant question. I think that um I think that the training and everything I've got from the product has just been so fit for purpose. A lot of the sales training I have done, whether it's been in past jobs where I've either got none or a bit or a decent amount, has been more general. Just like what is sales, like having a conversation with someone. It has been general and broad, which has helped with understanding it. But this has been like brutally, ruthlessly applicable at every single stage. Like, there's not one thing I feel that is in the product that hasn't actually genuinely I've implemented it and seen results come from it. There's not one thing I could point at and say that's not really something that has had an impact. Whereas the stuff in the past is more like, yeah, like now I understand the sales more. Like, I don't really use that, but I understand it. Yeah, so I think that just the sheer level of how applicable it has been, and yeah, like actionable and useful basically, and appropriate for what I'm doing. Obviously, like I said, you came from a similar offer, so it made sense that the stuff was going to be super applicable as well. But I mean, and now I could go back to any of my old sales roles and apply the same stuff, even if it wasn't as applicable to my old sales roles, and be more successful as well. So it's cool.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that, bro, because I have labored away in this dark room that
I know
everybody
you
is
have.
looking at right now. Just making sure that everything is just unbelievably in depth, because I know if you understand these nuances, then case in point, this is what happens. Like you will double, triple, quadruple your sales conversion rate. Okay, so that's
Mm.
cool. So it wasn't that long ago, right? Obviously, 4 months ago, goal was to get to 20%. Now you're sitting at 25 on your way to 30% sales conversion rate. What do your goals look like now? Now that you understand what you're doing in terms of sales, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, a combination of things. I think primarily, the obvious, just make shitloads of money, make loads of commission as a closer, put myself. I think the main thing is the money, just making more of it, putting myself around people and being able to kind of to be recognized by other people as somebody who is at an elite level, who's someone who is actually a top performer, and basically, be permitted access to those circles of people, which then go on to spiral your success even more so, and kind of continue to raise me up and put me in a better place, like financially and like in just terms of my life and fulfillment and all that kind of stuff. And then I also think that, I mean, obviously hitting the elusive 30, 40, 50%, like just benchmarks will also be fantastic as well. So I think those are probably the main things.
Beautiful. I have two final questions for you, Ollie.
Amazing.
The first one is for someone who is sitting on the fence, right? Um, maybe they've jumped onto a call, maybe they haven't even jumped onto a call, but they're like, I don't know. I don't know about this. Obviously, it's the on, and I get it as well, because all of us have gone through that journey, right? It is the online space. There's a lot of bad actors in this space as well. But perhaps they're sitting
Mm,
on the fence and they're like, I don't know if I should do this. This is going to be a lot of money for me. Like, if I am going to do this, I need to make sure that it works. What
mm.
would you say to somebody who's sitting on the fence like that and they want to become elite at sales? They want to become a sales demon, but they're a little bit hesitant.
It's your funeral. You're missing out. You know, like you are inches away from striking, striking gold, as they say. And yeah, I guess, I mean, I'd want to go through the entire sales process that you've taught me with the spinning jack. But it's even from the outside, I actually can't think of a reason why somebody who does sales would not benefit from this. I just can't think of a single reason. It is an absolute no-brainer. I mean, even if you just look at it from a long-term standpoint,
Mm.
I mean, even if it closes you an extra deal a month over, I mean, are you going to stop closing deals? Are you going to stop, working towards making more money in your business, making more revenue, everything like that? Like, just if you map out even on a long time horizon where it isn't that exciting, it still would be a no-brainer. But then to think like of the kind of short-term impact it can have, like tripling, quadrupling your close rate, it's just insane to think about it. Like the compounding kind of benefit it could have in your life in the long run, and the access, like I was saying, to opportunities and stuff. Because if you scale your business, then suddenly now you start getting to being able to do cooler things and better opportunities and everything like that. Very similar to my own goals. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I would love to be in. If this person was watching this right now, I'd love to just be in the room with them and be like, no, like seriously, you don't understand like what you're missing out on with this. So yeah, it's a no-brainer. Like it really is.
So, last question, Ollie, and there doesn't necessarily even need to be an answer to this one, but is there anything else that you wanted to bring to the table that perhaps I haven't explored with you?
The community. Yeah.
Sure.
Can't believe you've not mentioned the community, Jack. I mean, what a place. The brotherhood, you know. It's yeah, it's not a question, it's just the community is just insanely engaged and like great. Like everyone in there is just, obviously I joined when it was relatively small. I've jumped on one-on-one calls with almost everybody, and people join now and message me being like, "Hey, like you're on the sales training call. Like I can tell, like you obviously have a bit more further along. You're getting results. Like, do you want to jump on a call with me? Like, can you do some role plays with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, 100%." I've some of the people that I speak to most frequently on a daily basis are people in this community. Like I don't really use school very much, and the only place I've ever enjoyed being in a part of the group, messaging people, talking to people without just doing it for the sake of like just doing it, and being like trying to be a member of the group. Like I honestly I think the community is just unparalleled, and yeah, I can see myself being friends with like yourself and like people in here for a long, long time and working together and really getting a lot of just, both personal and kind of business like benefits from that. So yeah, I think that that's a really like important point to touch on. But other than that, I think you've pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that front, and I think it's just because we're all so competitive. Do you know what I
For
mean?
sure.
But it's strangely enough, luckily enough, it's a healthy competition. I see even my own clients, bro. I see my own clients like closing deals. I'm like, I'm gonna fucking smash you into the ground, bro. I'm gonna go and close some deals myself.
Honestly, it angers me every time someone posts a win. I'm like, oh, like it just infuriates me.
but as a result of that, we're all pushing one another to be better and giving each other support. But again, with all of this in mind, Ollie, like I'm so happy to be 120 days down the line from us having our sales call, see you in the position that you're in now, and also be
Mm,
fully aware of the fact that all of these things that you're talking about, being able to step into, even going into consultancy, coaching, being a sales manager, fractional sales manager, opening up doors to the cream of the crop in this space, that is actually a tangible reality for you at this stage. So the very last thing that I want to say to you, brother, is well done, right? Because I know you put in a lot of hard work, a lot of time, a lot of effort to make this possible. It's not just down to the product, and I can put my hands up to that. I put my heart and soul into the product to make sure that if someone like yourself who is serious comes into this, that you will get what you want out of the back end of it. So again, proud of you, bro, and keep it up.
done.
Right?
Actually, nah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that like more than you can imagine, Jack. So thanks. No, I genuinely, I couldn't have got to where I am now, and likely where I'm gonna go in the future without working with you and without being a part of this. So thank you, actually.
Beautiful, bro. All the best.